Hi, my name is Kerry Critchlow from RCR Recording Studios. And we're going to continue our lessons today on production basics. And believe me, this all has to do with creating songs, I promise you. I know it seems very simplistic, and you're probably asking yourself right now after these first few videos, well, how's this going to help me with music? And I promise we're going to get there, but these are all fundamental steps that once you understand these concepts, you'll be able to apply them in creating your own music and be able to write things that are that make sense. This all has to do with eventually how to get into, like, for instance, creating rhythms on drums or percussion, being able to create rhythm variations within your songs, that kind of thing. So this is all about duration so far, and we're going to continue on duration, and this is probably going to be the last, I imagine, video we're going to do on specifically duration, or at least as it pertains to like the beginner level of things. And so we're going to introduce today the concept of time signatures. Now, this may be scary to some of you, or probably super boring to others of you who already understand this stuff. But time signatures are going to help you understand how to put together your bars and measures that we went over last week and start to combine them together in order to create a full song, okay? And we went over last video about how each bar or measure is going to get a certain amount of beats in it before you move to the next bar or measure. And again, bar and measure are the exact same thing. They're interchangeable words. Time signatures are going to help you know how much information should be in each bar before moving on to the next bar. Okay? And to break it down as simply as I can, a time signature usually comprises of two numbers. There's a number on the top and a number on the bottom. The number on the top tells you how many beats are in a measure, and the number on the bottom tells you what type of note or beat are in that measure. For instance, if we were to take the most common time signature of all time, which is 4/4, it's also actually called common time. The top number is 4, and that means that there's 4 beats in the measure. The bottom number being 4 means that each beat is worth a quarter note. To take another example, if we were at 3/4, another extremely common time signature, the top number would say that there are going to be 3 beats in each measure, and each of those beats is worth 1 quarter note. If we were to say take 4/8, what that would tell you is that there are 4 beats in a measure, and each of those beats would be worth an eighth note. Now, you may be asking yourself, what is a quarter note? What's an eighth note? What's all this mean? Well, if you think of a measure as containing a whole amount of information, essentially what that means is, if we bring up our metronome again, last week we were talking about counting. So here we are, we're at 80 beats per minute again. I know it's backwards and you probably can't see, but each of these little blips going back and forth is considered 1 beat. And if we're in 4/4 time, that means there's going to be 4 of these little beeps every measure, okay? So in practical terms, if we were to count out 1, 2, 3, 4, that's how long your measure is. Then you move on to measure 2 or measure 3 or whichever measure you're on. A whole note means that what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be holding out 1 note or 1 chord, depending on what you're doing. But in this case, we're just going to say 1 note. So we're going to go back to our C note that we've been using since the beginning of this little series. And we're going to hold it out for 4 counts, and that is a whole note. It's being held out for the whole measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's as simple as that. That's what a whole note is. It means you're holding out that note for the whole measure. There's also things called half notes. And what a half note, you probably have guessed this already, but a half note means you're holding out the note for half the measure, or for 2 beats. So a whole note in 4/4 time, you're holding it out for 4 beats, and that's the entirety of that measure. A whole note, a half note for a measure would be 2 beats. So if we turn back on our metronome, count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, it's as simple as that. That's a half note. And a quarter note would be 1/4 of a whole note, or there would be 4 notes in that measure. Back to the metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And those were quarter notes at 80 BPM. And it's as simple as that. Whole note, half note, quarter note. Now you can actually get into even faster notes, and these notes would actually happen between beats, and they would be counted a little bit differently, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But you can subdivide those into even more fractions. I know math sucks, and I'm not great at math, so trust me when I say you can get this. But you have whole notes, you have half notes, you have quarter notes, you have eighth notes, you have 16th notes, you have 32nd notes, 64th notes, 128th notes, etc., etc., etc. Now, by and large, generally speaking, you're almost never gonna get to musical notation that's faster than a 32nd note, except in very, very rare instances. It will almost never come up, so you almost really don't have to worry about like 64th or 128th notes or anything like that. Just they exist, and you can get faster and faster and faster and faster if you want, and so on down the line. But I don't know if you're noticing a pattern, but a whole note is the entirety of a bar, a half note is half of a bar, a quarter note is 1/4 of a bar, a 16th note would then be 1/16 of a bar. And you would count those in between the beats. Now, there's a special way to count eighth notes and 16th notes that I'm going to get into. And like I said, you're almost never going to get faster than a 32nd note, but generally speaking, 16th note is going to be way more common, excuse me. But here's how you would count out the in-between beats. So if we have our metronome going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to count out the in-between beats, it would be like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. The ands were the in-between beats, and those were the eighth notes. So we have the 1 and 2 and. The and is signifying that it's an eighth note, and that's happening between the beats, not on the beats, and that's an eighth note. So if we were to play that out, we'll turn back on our metronome at 80 beats per minute, and we'll go to our C here. 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Simple as that. All right. To count out 16th notes, we're going to add in some extra in between phrases. So instead of saying 1 and 2, we're going to say 1E and that's going to give us room to put those 16th notes in, and that means that there's 16 notes in that bar if they're all 16th notes. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. And so that's how you would count out those subdivisions for 8th notes and 16th notes. To be completely honest, I have no idea how you would count out 32nd note subdivisions. So it doesn't come up very often, and so I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if you do want to get more into that kind of thing, there are a lot of YouTube channels and frankly Google searches that you can do that'll bring that kind of stuff up right away. I mean, like, it would take about 5 seconds to look that kind of stuff up. I'm not also I'm not going to go over the specific notation when it comes to how to write out this music, because frankly, in order to be a producer, you don't actually need to know that kind of stuff. I'm not saying it's not helpful, but you don't need to know it. And so this is not what this is. This is not what this is about. This series, I am simply trying to give you the basic information so that you can create a song and be able to produce that song in a DAW, digital audio workstation, like on your computer, on your laptop, what have you, and be able to create music on your own. You don't need to know all the theory to do that. You don't need to know all the ins and outs. So, and that can be, kind of liberating in a lot of ways. But again, it's not going to hurt you to know this information. You just don't need to know it. I'm trying to give you just the things you need to know, and I promise you I'm going to show you how this applies to actually creating the music, on your own time. But these are the fundamental things that once you understand these concepts, you're going to be able to take these and create your own music, and be able to understand how it's all put together. So we've gone over the example of 4/4. I'm also going to go over 3/4, and those are going to be basically the two most common types of rhythms or time signatures that you're going to get in most music. There are 5/4, 7/4, 7/8, all these other odd time signatures that exist out there, but they're very uncommon, and there are probably better people out there. If you really want to get into that type of music, there are better people than me that can teach you how to do that. This course is more for people that really just want to create music that you might hear on like the radio or Spotify or wherever you listen to music. And probably about 90% of the music you're going to ever hear in your entire life is either in 4/4 or 3/4. And the vast majority of that is in 4/4. So that's kind of what I'm going to cover today. There are better resources to get the 7/4, 7/8, 9/8, all the other crazy time signatures out there. And frankly, a lot of that kind of stuff tends to go over my head anyways. And so you're probably better off in somebody else's hands when it comes to that kind of thing. So anyways, we're going to cover really quickly 3/4 and how you would count that out. So we turn our metronome on. And so we're going to start with whole notes. And with I guess before we start, with 3/4 time, each measure is going to comprise of 3 beats, and each of those beats is going to be worth 1/4 note. Okay? And so if we were to do a whole note in 3/4 time, that means you're going to hold that note out for a count of 3 beats, and that would be the whole measure. Okay, so 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So a whole note. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Technically, and we'll get into this, but there are things called dotted notes, and that just means you're adding half of the value to a note. We'll get into it. But in 3/4 time, there's no half note per se. There's what you would call a dotted quarter note, which would be 1.5 quarter notes. A dotted quarter note would be 1.5 quarter notes. It will make sense later as we go through this, I promise you. But for now, we're not going to worry about that concept currently. But because you can't evenly divide 3 in half, there's no real half notes when it comes to 3/4 time signatures. There's dotted quarter notes. So we're going to skip the half note for now, and we're going to get into just going into the quarter notes for 3/4. So 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that's your quarter notes. And you can also do eighth notes when it comes to 3/4. 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3, and 1 and 2 and 3, and 1 and 2 and 3, and you do 16th notes as well. 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3, 1E and a 2E and a 3, and a 1E and a 2E and a 3, and a 1E and a 2E and a 3, and a 1E and a 2E and a 3, and a... Sorry, I'm not the best at this. Anyways, you're starting to get the basics of how to count these rhythms out, and this is all gonna make sense later. And we're gonna get more into practical demonstrations as well. I'll show you how to create a project in a DAW and go over how this rhythm applies in a more practical sense, as opposed to just kind of sitting here with a metronome and a guitar. I'll actually show you how this can be useful in creating drum loops, grooves, how to use it to create rhythmic interest in melodies, and all of that other fun jazz. But for right now, what you should understand up to this point is A is probably a bad way to start. The fundamentals that you should understand at this point is that all music is basically comprised of pitch and duration. That is what note or so that is a change in pitch, and then there's the duration, how long you're playing those pitches for, okay? That's the absolute basics of music. You should also understand how to be able to count that music in 2s, 3s, 1E and a 2Es, all of that kind of stuff. And at least the rudiments of how time signatures work, because that affects how you break out your measures or what information is contained inside those measures and how to group those measures together to create a cohesive song, okay? Though that is the absolute basics of production, and once you understand these rudimentary fundamental concepts, you will be able to create these bars and measures and the information contained within, i.e. your song, and be able to produce it and create music of your own, okay? So I think that's it as far as the duration aspect. We'll get into more into like the pitch aspects of it starting next week, and sometime in the next few weeks, give or take, I'll actually get into more practical examples of showing you how to create these things in your DAW, and we'll go over how to create MIDI tracks, how to create drum tracks, how to create melodies and chord progressions and all of that kind of stuff. But right now I just want to set a foundation level for absolute beginners who know nothing about it, and these are the fundamental aspects of music. So once you understand these concepts, this will all make a lot more sense when you're working inside your DAWs and creating your music. Whether you're using Reason or Ableton, Logic, Studio One, the DAW doesn't really matter. Probably shouldn't say this, people will probably hate me for it, but all DAWs are basically the same. They all do the same thing. The only real difference is the user interface, or like where the menuing is. Aside from that, they all function in exactly the same way. So if you know how to use one DAW, you know how to use them all. It's just a matter of where to go in this one for that menu or whatever. But anyways, I think that's it for now. I hope this has all been helpful, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks so much, and goodbye.